Hello and welcome to Solely Singleton, Season 11, Episode 8. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going?
And after our experimental episode that you all heard last week, we're back.
Wildly successful.
One hangover later, and we've brought back Christian, who only hates me a lot.
Brad, I am surprised you remember the previous recording.
I remember most of the colors in the previous recording.
Just not red.
All right, so this episode is going to be a bit more serious. We're going to be discussing Christian's custom card package he's adding to his peasant cube, and we're going to go into detail about what it is, why he's doing it, what his feelings are on the cards, the hurdles that he's had making it, and then at the end, we're going to discuss how all of the cards that you people at home made for it ended up faring. But without any further ado, let's jump right in.
Sounds good.
Let's do it.
So, Christian, this whole thing came about because you're trying to design custom cards for your cube. Why? What's the point of making your own custom cards for a cube?
Sure. It's one of those things that might sound obvious of, I just want to make my own cards and solve my own problems, but I think it goes deeper than that. For one, I've been toying around with the idea of making custom cards or making a custom cube for, I don't even know, maybe a year or more now. I know back when you all did the episode with, it was Justin Parnell and Ali Andrazi, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, the custom card cube.
I remember listening back to that episode, and that really kind of awakened in me the desire to make a custom cube. But making a custom cube is incredibly daunting, as was discussed on that episode, if you want to make one that is balanced and good, etc., etc. So the next step down from that really is to make a set of cards, make a package, like in another episode that you all have had, where you can create custom cards that fit with the environment that you already have in your cube, while fixing problems that you may have, or accentuating various archetypes that may not have support, and ultimately you can create and curate the environment that you may want that you cannot have.
Okay, I think that makes sense.
I think what's cool about creating custom cards is it's kind of like, I like to think of it as the final step of being a Magic player. You know, like, you can go in one direction and the final step is like you're gonna win the Pro Tour, right? I think the alternate branching path is just like you are making your own sets. You know, you're working at WotC, or you're just doing, in this case, making your own set in the form of a cube that people play with. And I think that that's kind of cool, right? It's both daunting and cool to have that much ability to craft your environment.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody who makes their own cube is, a designer at heart and wants to make something of their own. A lot of times we use what's available that's printed from WotC to curate a list. But yeah, I mean, sometimes it's like you want to go that extra step further and make some of the cards on your own.
Exactly, and that's especially true for a situation like my own, where I already have these limitations being a peasant cube. I fixed some problems by doing things like playing rare duels to fix the problem of not having good dual lands at uncommon. But there's some things that you just can't fix, right? There's some things like, hey, I just don't get real board wipes, or high CMC creatures really, really drop off once you get past 4 mana. And those kinds of problems are ones that WotC could potentially fix, but admittedly, they're going to have a hard time doing so. They can't just print anything at uncommon if they do care about the limited environment, and I understand that. So problems like that can be fixed in my specific environment by moving towards custom cards.
Related to that, was there any thoughts of just including some rares that fix these holes? Like, okay, you don't get board wipes, well, have a Day of Judgment.
Sure. I mean, that's actually something I experimented with maybe a couple years ago now, not long after making my cube. And I was playing with, there actually was one board wipe I was playing with. Is it Planar Outburst? The one that had, it was from Battle for Zendikar.
Yes, Planar Outburst.
Yeah. And basically I was experimenting with that because that to me was like, okay, this is a weak board wipe, but it's still a board wipe, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was playing with that. I was playing with, I remember Rune Chanter's Pike was one that I was playing with because I wanted the Spells Matters deck to have something cool with it.
Right.
I guess just things like that. And I did experiment with it. Ultimately, they didn't break anything. But especially once I started doing more with the podcast, I didn't like having to add so many caveats to my cube when explaining it. It's already hard enough explaining that you're a peasant cube. It's harder to explain that you still play rare duels, but you don't play certain rare duels, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then when you add on to that, no, I'm a peasant cube, I just play rare cards.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. And like, especially since you're coming at this custom thing as like really a package of you can play the cube normally, and then this is just an in addition if you want to type thing.
Exactly. And I'll admit, I feel like since creating customs, and especially now that we've done this contest, I'm going to be hard pressed to ever play my cube without custom cards, especially because I don't get to play very often. But yes, that is correct. There is the option there, right? Where you can have a cube, and as long as the custom package actually accentuates what you have going on in your cube, you don't necessarily have to swap things out. You can just shuffle it in and go.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the easiest things to do with packages is, try and limit the barrier of logistics to actually being able to go from one thing to the next.
Absolutely.
So, when you started making these cards, what hurdles did you end up running into?
Yeah, so some things I expected to be problems, and other things I did not expect to be problems, and I think that we'll get into that, but one thing in particular that I did not expect to be a problem ended up being the largest problem. But before we talk about that, the things that I think should be obvious to anyone who is getting into custom cards is it's hard to balance a Magic card.
Yeah.
And you gain a lot of respect for WotC employees by trying to make custom cards. It's not as easy as it looks to, without playing with a card, print something that is playable but not broken. And what's nice about making customs is you can always adjust it. You can fine-tune cards, you can play with it and say, oh, that needs to be a mana more or a mana less. And so for them, they don't really get to do that. They've got some time to test it, but once it's released, it's released. So a lot of respect gained there.
I mean, most of the time until they decide to tack on 3 mana when you cast it from... But never mind, never mind. Sorry.
You're right. But with creating a custom card, when you're making a cube, especially if you're somebody who is just playing, like, let's say a normal unpowered list, you have a lot of cards that you can pull from. And you're only going to play a small amount of them. And it can be hard to pick the cards that are good enough, that are balanced around the power level that you're trying to set, while also maybe trying to play cards that you just want to play. That becomes even more challenging when you're allowed to do whatever you want.
Yeah, there's still a ton of design space open in Magic. So...
Mm-hmm. And it's not even about making something crazy new, right? Like, for example, one of the first things that I made for my custom card package is a card called Brilliant Bolt. And it's nothing no one has ever suggested before. It's something that I presume at some point in the next 5 years they're gonna print. And it's 1 and a red, instant, deal 3 damage to any target, scry 1. Clean, simple, they haven't been printing cards that quote-unquote strong, but, it's easy. Right?
Yeah.
That's easy to do. But then there are things like, hey, I want to make a black board wipe, but I don't want to just make 5 mana Damnation. I don't want to just print Damnation at uncommon. So what am I going to do about that? And that gets a lot more difficult. And so as an example, what I have come up with is a much more complicated card, which is a card that I don't know is balanced, which is Sprawling Vacuity, which is 2 and 2 black for a sorcery. You destroy up to 2 target creatures, and you lose 3 life, but then it has Adamant. So if at least 3 black mana was spent to cast the spell, you instead destroy all creatures, and you still lose 3 life. So at that point, it becomes sort of a split card of 1 black, 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 Damnation, lose 3 life, or 2 black, black, destroy 2 creatures, lose 3 life. And that might be balanced, that might be too powerful, I really don't know. It's fine-tuned in such a way that there's not much like it. But that's difficult. It took me a long, long time to get to just that design.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those, like, you found a problem that you want to fix, which is, a black board wipe, but actually figuring out the design balance and flavor that fits the correct answer to that problem is difficult.
Yes, and speaking of flavor, I think that's a good segue to discuss one of the other biggest hurdles that I found when making cards. For me personally, there's a lot of custom card creators out there. For me personally, I want the card to look, feel, sound, you know what I mean, like a Magic card. Right. And that includes the art. And let me tell you, finding art for cards that actually fits the name that you want it to be, the creature type that you want it to be, if it's a spell, making it look like they're doing the thing that you want it to be doing, that is so hard. It is incredibly difficult. There's a lot of art out there on the internet, and a lot of it is very lewd, and a lot of it is very irrelevant, and a lot of it just looks good, but it doesn't have a background. You know what I mean? Or a lot of it's good. It's just like, it's so difficult to find card art that fits what you want it to do. There are things that I've made where I make it a certain creature type or a certain name, thinking to myself, well, this will at least be easy to find art. And then you still can't find art. I thought for sure I would be able to find a picture of art of a goblin being shot out of a cannon. Nope. Apparently not.
It becomes even more difficult if you're trying to keep it in the theme of modern Magic art, where like
exactly.
It has, it's a red card, well, it's going to have certain shades that it accepts, whereas you're not going to have it being a primarily blue background with a blue art.
Correct. Or the other big thing is you'll find art that's perfect, and you go to find credit for the art, and you realize it's art for another Magic card. Or you realize Perfect. It's art for a Hearthstone card. Or, you know what I mean? Where I don't like to do that either, because there's going to be somebody who recognizes that art, and that's going to screw them up, right?
Yeah.
You can't just paste the art. Well, you can, but I don't like to just paste the art from one Magic card onto another and change its name. So that's really hard. And on the same sort of... to the same point there, naming cards is also really hard. You don't think about it until you have to do it.
Yeah.
But there are like 20,000 plus Magic cards now or something like that. There's only so many words in the English language for burn or no or dead.
Set
you know
on
what
fire
I mean?
will
like,
be in the next standard set, by the way.
Yeah, or
exactly.
like, I can't wait to make my counterspell called I don't want you to do that anymore. You know, like...
Yeah.
And let me tell you, there was not a single time that I was naming a card where I didn't have a fucking thesaurus open, just typing in words and going, oh, that's a word? All right, sure, vacuity. Sprawling vacuity, that's a good one. Or here's another one. You know what a megalania is? Anybody?
No.
No idea? It's apparently some kind of lizard.
I was going to say a dinosaur, so...
Well, sure. That fits, because now I have Bog Megalania, which is a big green creature that is now a lizard because it wasn't gonna be, but now it is.
Hey, I mean, I'm sure that's exactly how WotC does it too, right?
I mean, to some extent they have to, right? There's only so many words. How many times can you find words for a bolt? How many times can you find a word? I've got one... Do you know what the word exuberancy means?
Happy, excited.
It might actually. I don't know. Anyway, that's the name of one of my cards.
Exuberant is basically excited.
Yeah, okay. Well, there you go. It's a aura that gives flying, and it has the Rancor ability.
Sounds right.
And the art is a polar bear with wings. So yeah, I won't go into every single card that I've created, but suffice to say, naming cards, finding art that fits, etc., that's the hardest part. It doesn't even come close. There have been so many cards where I have ideas and they're not finished because their name right now is better version of that one dude or some zombie or whatever.
Nice.
You know what I mean? I've got 5 lands. You know what their names are? I don't, but right now they are Azorius Horizon Land, Demir Horizon Land, Gruul Horizon Land, Rakdos Horizon Land, and Horizon Canopy, but I want to get some different art.
That sounds perfect. I mean, those are...
But you get what I'm saying. Like, it's difficult.
All right, so enough of the hurdles. Can you tell us about the actual cards you made, like any mechanics you came up with or things you used to expand what a color can do or how you solved those problems?
Absolutely. So I have only created one mechanic, but I do like it. Now it's not incredibly inspired. It's effectively, I took Adapt and I took Monstrous and I kind of like squished them together a little bit and effectively made what I once thought Adapt was when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made an ability that I really like that's called Enhance. So Enhance is effectively Enhance X. Okay, you're going to put X +1/+1 counters on a creature you control that is not enhanced, and it becomes enhanced. And it's simple. So it's got like the monstrous-y Adapt text, but you can have one creature enhance another creature, as opposed to only itself.
Okay.
And so there are some interesting things that you can do with this design space. For one, it fits in with the +1/+1 counter theme in a unique way. You know, it's well, I don't know if unique is the right word. It's putting counters on something else. That's been done a million times. But because you make the creature enhanced, you can do different things. So as an example of this, I have a blue creature that I know Brad is going to love.
Oh, no.
And it's called Slithermagus, and it has Cascade. No, I'm just kidding. It's called Slithermagus. This is 1 blue mana for a 1/1 Snake Lizard Wizard. It is a 1/1, and it has 2 abilities, the first of which is 1 and a blue to enhance 1. So it can put a counter on itself for 2 mana, or it can do it to other creatures. And it says, enhanced creatures you control cannot be blocked.
Nice.
So, I could have worded it as +1/+1 counter creatures, they can't be blocked, but because it has to be enhanced specifically, you can still play it in those cubes, but it's a little bit more of a hurdle to get over. You know what I mean?
Yes. So how many enhanced cards did you end up making?
As of right now, I don't have a ton. I have a single multicolored Simic card, and then I have a couple in blue, and I have currently 1 in green. I would like to make maybe 1 more in green. And that's the thing is, like, if you're making a mechanic, depending on what the mechanic is, you don't necessarily have to overload your cube with it. Just having a couple cards with it can sometimes be enough. Having a single card with it can sometimes be enough, really. But much like with naming cards, it's also difficult to name mechanics.
Yes.
Yeah. Watsy's even screwed that up a few times.
Yeah, remember Megamorph?
Oh no, our test mechanic made it out in the wild. No, pretend that we did that on purpose.
Right.
No one will know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those that sometimes less is more to a point where it's like, if it's enhancing something that the cube's already doing, if it's taking that and giving it a bit of spice, you only need a few, like 1, 2, cards that are doing that different style that makes the entire archetype feel slightly different when it actually comes up.
Absolutely, especially with a mechanic like that, where it is... You need a few different enhanced creatures in order for things being enhanced to actually matter, for them to like play alongside each other, because basically they play alongside each other in such a way that, like, for example, I have a green one that says whenever a creature you control becomes enhanced, you may have a fight target creature. So if you get more than one, you get that added benefit, but it doesn't end up being parasitic in a way, because it's fine to just put +1/+1 counters on creatures, or just, you can have the +1/+1 counter synergy, but sometimes it's just enough to have a 1 mana creature that you put 2 mana into, and it's a 2/2 unblockable now. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's important, if you're going to have mechanics that could be considered parasitic, to make them in such a way that they can fit with other aspects of your cube when you don't get all of them.
And I think that's a primary thing, that since you were designing this as a package, that it needed to fit with the rest of the cube. It wasn't one of those where you're like, okay, I get to design whatever I want, and all of it, I can put in 100 new cards and then make it a completely new cube. So that means I can add energy or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Energy's a perfect example there.
Yeah, where it works if a third of the cube is energy and related to it, but if only 10 cards are, they kind of have to, be single cards that work with energy and are a payoff. And like, it's just a whole hurdle that would be kind of parasitic and ridiculous.
Exactly. And one last thing to sum this all up, I just want to say, if you are on the fence about making a custom package for your cube, I advise you do it. You may not end up with something that's usable. You may go into it and find out, hey, this isn't for me, or this isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. But one, it's been a ton of fun for me. So much fun that I ended up saying, hey, let's do a contest around it, right?
Yeah.
Which was even more fun. But I think anybody who has entered the contest can attest to, it challenges you in a way that nothing else does as a cube creator, right? Once you realize you have access to anything, you really start to appreciate when you don't have access to everything.
Yeah, and it's one of those, like, if you're going to go through the hurdle of designing a custom card, you're usually going to do it for a reason. And that in and of itself is one of those, like, okay, what does my cube want? Like, what would make this cube better? Not just strictly at a power level, 0 mana lightning bolt, but like, what actually makes the entire experience enhanced and better to a point that, like, it fills a hole or it just adds cohesion to a certain archetype.
Exactly, and it also has the added benefit of being that sort of, well, if you think you can design this so well, if you think you can fix this problem so easily, try it. And then people do, and maybe they do, but a lot of times they won't.
But it's one of those that, like, even if you try and design something and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, it gives you the understanding of, like, this is the type of thing that I want to keep my eye out, because WotC makes hundreds of new cards every year. Well, now you know if they print something similar, you should have your eye out and, like, okay, maybe I wouldn't have tested this before, but I was looking for this type of effect. I'm going to test this card now.
Exactly.
All right, we've put this off long enough. It's time for us to finally reveal the winners in the slowest way possible.
Yeah, I was going to say, we do have one thing first that we kind of screwed up, so...
So we're going to talk about some honorable mentions. We have an honorable mention that I'm going to dub the Brad fucked up honorable mention.
Yeah.
The Australian Thought Police honorable mention.
Yeah, so one of the people who submitted had their email get flagged for some Australian education email issue system thing. So I didn't see it until after we recorded last week's episode. So we had a 57th entry that was valid, which was Grit Tusk, the pack leader, which is 4 red-green for a 5/5 legendary creature beast. Whenever Grit Tusk, the pack leader, or another creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, deal 2 damage to any target. And sacrifice 4 lands, create a green 4/4 beast creature token. So this one was our bad. I attempted to get a hold of the person who created this to warn them that it wouldn't be on the Hot Takes episode, but the email bounced, so they're going to hear that episode without it and wonder why we thought their submission wasn't valid. Oops, that's our fault.
We're so sorry.
It also is a cool card. Like, I mean,
It actually is.
Yeah.
a big green dude that's taking advantage of things that are also big, slinging around shocks. I love the sack 4 lands to make a 4/4. Like, let's do it.
Is 4 lands too much?
I mean, yeah, but when you do it, you just feel like a baller.
You're like, well, I'm top decking anyway. Fuck it.
I mean, it doesn't say sorcery speed, so end of their turn.
You know what?
I'm
That's
going
true.
for the Alpha Strike. They're dead, right?
Plus, it's an additional shock with each time that you do it. So
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's a lot of damage that could be dealt the next turn that comes around.
yeah.
So
this, we wanted to bring it up. This is a very interesting idea, and whoever submitted this, we're very sorry that your entry didn't make it into the hot takes. On the upside, you're the only entry to make it into this episode, and so, take some solace in that. I do love your card.
Yeah, definitely. So before we get into Spooties, we've got a few more that we want to say. So Brad, what was your pick from from the hot takes.
Okay, so to give a little background, Christian told us his final picks and his runner-up honorable mentions, but we also wanted to pick out our own final pick, but we only picked one each.
Yeah, and ours is not for the contest entry. These are just the cards that we like.
When Eric and I mention your card right now, you aren't getting shit for it.
Which is fair, right? Because it was said right at the beginning that I am the judge.
You are the judge. Eric and I just want to shout out cards that we liked, even though we have no say in who wins.
Right.
Yes.
My pick, honestly, because of the talking on the episode about it, ended up being Glacial Phoenix. I really did like this card. I believe it is probably too strong to ever see print. Well, we say that, but we know how Magic's been going.
Uncommon, probably not, but
yeah,
who knows?
Well, they'd push it to Mythic so that they could use it to sell 45 extra booster box per people. We're not getting into that. I really did like this card. The art biases me slightly because I absolutely adore that art. The design itself, for those who don't remember, was 3 blue for a 4/3 artifact creature Phoenix with flying, cycling 1 in a blue, and when you cycle Glacial Phoenix, counter target non-creature spell with CMC 3 or less. It gets minus points for being an artifact creature Phoenix that doesn't do anything Phoenix related, and is also an artifact creature for no real discernible reason other than to butter me up.
Yeah, it was like just so that it can fit perfectly in the decks that you want to play.
Yeah, so someone hand designed this thinking I would have a say in what one.
I'm sure that's what they thought.
But yeah, this was Brad bait through and through.
Similarly, my pick is Goblin Potato Cannon, which I love goblins, and this is the Goblin Bombardment style thing. So this was 1 and a red for an artifact. You can pay 1, sacrifice a creature to create a food token, and you can sacrifice a food to have Goblin Potato Cannon deal 2 damage to any target. Then you flip a coin. If you win, you lose 1 life. If you lose 3 life. Out of all the cards, there was some really sweet ones. I mean, some of the sacrifice outlets were sweet, but this is the card that I would want to play in Cube. I just love everything about it. The flavor, what it's doing. I'm in. I'm all about this card.
For me, both of these 2 cards that you all brought up were ones that I loved, but they both had what I consider to be balance issues. In the case of Glacial Phoenix, I know right away I want to play with this card, but I want to tinker with some of the... Like, for example, I want to make it CMC 2 or less, maybe make it a 3/3 flyer just to help balance it a little bit.
Yeah, it's a bit strong as it is.
Exactly. And with the Potato Cannon, I think it might need a little bit of a buff, maybe fix some of the life loss in the coin flip. But
yeah, coin flipping is always kind of annoying and like adding that little randomness, but it's goblin-y.
It's worth noting that like Brad misread it the first time, right?
Yeah.
And that's always a red flag. Well, maybe not when Brad
I was going to
misreads
say,
it,
I
don't
know if that's the best example to give.
Okay, well, moving on, I have a nice handful of honorable mentions as well, more than I expected to have, but some of these cards really just deserve a quick shout-out for various reasons. So, without further ado, I present to you all of my Spooty awards. In the category of Best Art Befitting the Card, Somber Shred. Somber Shred is a card that I quite liked, and both Brad and I were stricken by how well the art fit the card, even though that's not part of what makes a card win. It goes without saying that this one for sure wins this fake award category that I just made up.
Yeah, I mean, you were just talking about how difficult it was for you to find art, and this one fits. We talked about it in the hot take thing. This is perfect.
Absolutely. Next up, we have the Best Flavor Award, and that is for Alluring Naiads. So Alluring Naiads, once again, we mentioned this during the hot takes. Adventure cards are easier to make flavorful, but that doesn't take away from the fact that they are flavorful. Alluring Naiads having the lore having the flash, which is kind of like quickly swimming up, right? And then getting the reduction to the power is kind of like they're letting down their guard kind of thing. I love it. I love everything about it. The name, the art for this one's actually quite good too, quite fitting. And Beckoning Call being the name of the adventure, also perfect. So chef's kiss there. Great job on your flavor there. Wonderful job.
Yeah, definitely.
So next up, we've got the Best Persist Creature Award. An award only necessary because I got so goddamn many persist creatures.
I mean, persist is sweet, right?
It is sweet, and with persist combo being a thing that I've talked about, you all have talked about, people love the deck, it goes without saying that I would get a lot of persist creatures. So, the Best Persist Creature Award goes to Creekwood Scrounger. This card has Evoke and has Persist, as we already know. One thing that I love about this card is the hybrid cost to it. Hybrid mana is a mechanic that I personally really, really like. I think it's good for cube design, and it's beneficial when creating something that can fit easily into multiple archetypes. Ultimately, Creekwood Scrounger wins my heart because the 2-mana Evoke version, still being hybrid, effectively makes this a better Satyr Wayfinder, where Satyr Wayfinder is a card that I don't really enjoy playing but do sometimes anyway. So, great job, person who submitted Creekwood Scrounger.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Satyr Wayfinder, even though it's not usually great in Cube.
Yes.
So this one definitely fits a little bit better.
Absolutely. Next up, we have the Best Backstory Award. Emphasis on back.
Yeah.
This one goes to none other than Sultai Skullduggery. The enchantment spawned from the Sultai Payoffs deck, created by none other than Gwen from Cube Cobra during SCGCon, and with the lovely art featuring yours truly. There's really not much else to say. If you are unsure what the story is, you need to go back and listen to Hot Takes, because we discuss it at length.
All right, Christian, up next.
Next up, we have the Heartbreaker Award. This one was given to the person who I feel like we broke the heart of the most.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
We're all very sorry. Somebody who we first read the card and loved everything about it, and it is a good card, but then we started thinking about the flavor of the card, which we didn't necessarily do for everybody, but for some reason we got hung up on it on this card, and it ruined it for me, and that is Bereft Lover, who is a creature with lifelink that makes a spirit that can then sacrifice the spirit to gain more life. And I didn't get it, and I'm sorry.
I love the card as mechanic.
The card's sweet. I'm probably still going to play it.
Yeah. But yeah, we did go a bit off on a weird tangent with that one.
And up next, we have the honorable mention for the worst fucking name I've ever read.
This is a combination honorable mention. It's a mix between the honorable mention of my girlfriend's choice for the best card in the set, as well as the Fuck You Brad honorable mention of Postal Pangolin. Brad, how do you read this card?
Postal Pangolin.
Yes, so Brad is unable to read, and if you would like to support him and his ability to go back to school and learn how to read, you can do so at patreon.com/Solely Singleton.
Go fuck yourself.
For some reason, I now want to make a Postal Pan Goblin.
That one's easy because that one's easy to say, and it's how this should be pronounced.
But yes, my girlfriend, Pangolin, you know, I can't even say the fucking word now because of you, goddammit.
It's Pangolin, I'll help you out.
It's not. Pangolins are one of my girlfriend's favorite animals, and so she was very excited once I was reading this card to her. She loves the art.
Also, while we were arguing this, we found out via Wikipedia they are also known as what was the name that it had?
Was it spiky anteaters or scaly anteaters?
Scaly anteaters. Why do we not call it scaly anteater? It's such a better name.
It truly is.
It is a better name, and it would avoid the arguments.
Yeah. Also, fuck you, entire country of Greece, and your history of not being able to pronounce words.
Okay, let's move on. So next up, we have the Angry Eric Award. Awarded to the card, which made Eric more angry during our hot takes than any other card, and that goes to Goblin Coronation. Not because he's angry at the card, but because he's angry at Brad at being able to understand Red and Monarch.
Yeah, got a bit heated on that one.
This card still isn't that good, and we'll fight about that later.
So next up, we've got 2 cards for an honorable mention. They go together because this is the I'd Ship It award. And this goes to both Frosty Bird and Glacial Phoenix.
Yep.
Both of which are 4/3 flyers. They're cold birds. And I don't know what you two were smoking when you both made these cards, but I ship y'all.
I checked this. I checked this afterward. One of these was made by a patron, the other one was not. So it's not like 2 patrons ended up like talking about something and made the same similar name on their cards. This is pure happenstance.
Yes, I love it. And you know what else? I ship it.
I'm with you. I ship it too.
So next up, we have the Best Creative Fix Award. And that's going to go to Septic Wave. Septic Wave is a card that fixes the blackboard white problem in a very creative way. And this one was up there for me. Ultimately, it didn't quite make it, so I'm sorry. But I do highly, highly, highly appreciate the fact that you saw a problem and you made a fix for it that isn't just simple, while also being cool. Like Eric said during the hot takes, it opens up some other potential ideas in the future. And so I give a lot of respect to you for making this like you did. Next up, we have the Short and Simple Award, and that goes to Spooty 1 for being short and simple.
It's a short joke.
It's a short joke because I'm not very tall. No, this actually goes to Socratic Goblin. Socratic Goblin, single red mana, 2/1 for a goblin that can't block, and when it enters the battlefield, you investigate. It's a simple design, and there's something beautiful about that, you know?
I was actually shocked that this was not Eric's pick.
I thought it was going to be as well.
I mean, it's got a lot of things going for it, but it's not throwing food around, so.
That's true. All right, 2 honorable mentions left. The penultimate honorable mention I have dubbed the Broken Brad Award. The award goes to the card which broke Brad the most, and that goes to Rear Admiral Spoot, where upon me reading the flavor text, Brad ceased existing.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Everything about that
Pretty
is
good.
the Spooty card.
It really, really is. And last but not least, we have the Best Flavor Text Award, which is awarded to Mischievous Ink Thief, with the flavor text of, "Books are heavy. Why don't we just take the words?" That's beautiful. I love that flavor text.
I missed that until you were talking about it today, and I really did like that flavor text.
It's
Yeah,
really
pretty
good.
And it works with like the whole card. It's very flavorful. So it's not just like,
Absolutely.
oh, here's this one-liner.
Exactly.
All right, Christian, we've delayed this as long as we can humanly get away with. I can already picture the death threats.
Yeah,
Please.
the SWAT team is being called on us right now.
Release the final winners.
All right, here we go. First up, congratulations to the person who submitted Agnes Slinking Auntie, not Auntie. Auntie. I'll read the card out.
It's Auntie. It's your
Auntie
aunt.
is not legal in Magic, Brad. 1 black for a 3/1 legendary goblin rogue. Agnes Slinking Auntie has menace as long as it has a +1/+1 counter, and you can sacrifice a creature so that target opponent chooses a creature you control, and you will put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. This card didn't initially make it into my mental top 5 as I first read through the list, but there was no other card where during the hot takes I found myself liking it more and more as much as this card. And even after our hot takes, I just couldn't stop thinking about the cool things that could potentially happen with this card. So kudos to you. I don't think this card is crazy powerful, and I think that's fine. I think that this card is balanced and interesting and does things while not being explicitly broken.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of play to it that we were bringing up previously on the hot takes. That it's just an interesting card, and the play patterns seem pretty cool, so makes sense.
Absolutely. All right, next up, the second winner of the episode 100 something thing, Glory Plume Captain. Glory Plume Captain is 2 and 2 Azorius hybrid for a 2/4 flying bird soldier. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, you may exile that creature. If you do, return that card to the battlefield under your control with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. We said it during the hot takes, and I'll say it again now. The thing that I love most about this card is how it nonchalantly fits in with so many different strategies without being in your face about it. You know, it fits in with the ninjas deck without saying the word ninja.
Which is pretty impressive.
It does.
It's not
it
very
is
common.
impressive.
Yes. You know, it doesn't get bonus points for being a 2/4, but that's hilarious that I did end up picking a 2/4 after all that.
Of course you did.
What it does get bonus points for is for being a hybrid card. I found as I was going through this list that I was drawn to hybrid cards, probably for obvious reasons, but one big reason for it is that it allows the card to fit into more strategies while allowing it to do additional things. You know what I mean? Like, this wouldn't be incredibly printable at 2 white. It would feel outside of the color pie, and similarly for 2 blue, in my opinion. But when you get hybrid mana, you can do all kinds of new things. So, congratulations to the creator of Glory Plume Captain. And we'll see you next week!
Yeah, the last winner is next week. No, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
For this last one, it was very difficult for me to actually make a decision. I got down to 3 choices. And between those 3 choices, I ended up choosing this card because while I wanted to play with them all, out of the 3, this was the one that I felt most excited to put into my cube. And when you get to the end of the day, that's exactly what this contest is about, right? It's about what cards do I want to put in my cube.
So what 3 were you debating between?
Somber Shred, Creekwood Scrounger, and the winner, Insatiable Urchin. Insatiable Urchin is a white-black hybrid for a 1/1 lifelink vampire, and you may cast it from your grave if you gain life this turn. Insatiable Urchin, for me, takes the cake as my favorite of all of these submitted recursive black 1-drops.
There was a few.
There were a few, and for what it's worth, I'm probably going to play them all. I mean, I need many, right? So
Yeah. Currently you have very few.
Correct, I would say 0.
Yeah.
But what I do love about this card, it comes down to the hybrid cost again. There's just something about hybrid mana that does it for me, I'm realizing. What I love about this is because of how it is costed, it opens up recursive 1-drops to white, and it does so in a way that doesn't feel outside of the color pie, right? Like, you can't really just print a white Gravecrawler. You can't print a white... I mean, you could.
Just make it a human and it fits, right?
As long as you control a human, the humans rise from the grave, but not as zombies.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. Of course. It also fits in with the fact that there are white vampires now, thanks to Ixalan block. And I love the name, Insatiable Urchin. You know, it fits with what it's doing. Overall, I really like the design of this card. I appreciate the creativity, and, you know, they got me.
I thought it just spoke to you because you too are a thirsty poor person.
You know what? You're right.
God.
Somber Shred is 3 white for a 2/2 flying elemental. It has evoke for a single white. If you evoke it, then when it enters the battlefield, you exile up to 1 other creature and return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. But if you didn't evoke it, you just exile that end creature instead. And then Creekwood Scrounger is 1 and 2 Golgari hybrid for a 3/2 elemental with evoke as well, of 1 and a Golgari hybrid. It has persist, and when it enters the battlefield, you mill 2 cards. Both of these cards are incredibly interesting, and also cards that I really, really want to play in my cube, and that I love the design space of.
For everybody who won, you should already know before this episode airs. We're recording this in advance. We've already sent this out to the winners, so hopefully you're already in contact with us upon hearing this episode.
Yeah, definitely.
Alright, but that does it for us this week. I'm Brad. You can find me on Twitter as @DrRuler. You can find Eric
On Twitter @OneQuosora.
You can find Christian
On Twitter at Spooty1.
The show's email is, as always, sollysingleton@gmail.com. Please send us emails telling us how wrong we were for not picking your wonderful card.
Yeah, definitely. The show's website is www.sollysingleton.com.
The show has a Patreon. You too can spend money on this. Go to patreon.com/sollysingleton. Make it a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year for all of us here.
Christian is really thirsty for that fucking money. No wonder he's an insatiable urchin.
Hey, ayo.
Rim shot.
Got 'em.
Air horns.
And you can just find us around in the MTG Cube communities.
All right, that does it for us this week. I hope you all enjoyed this program. I hope you all tune in again next week. Until then, have a great week, everyone. Eric, Christian, fight to the death to take us out.
I think me and Eric can both agree that it's pronounced pangolin.
Yeah.